ASMR. Alright, you guys, let's see how this goes. I've had dogs barking, a train go by, fire engines, police. Let's try this again. So I thought that I would scroll through Reddit and try and find some creepy stories to read. Let's try this one, posted by Leader of Decepticons, the doll in the storage room. When I was younger, I'd go visit my grandparents all the time. They lived in a one-floor house with an unfinished basement. I never liked it down there. It felt really small for a big basement. There was a little door down there that was for storage, and I always got a horrible feeling when going close to it. And let me add that this was a newer house. Now, during the time I was about 6 or 7, I felt so uncomfortable going down there, even when I was with someone. I just didn't like it. I remember going down there with my grandma to help with something. She had to run upstairs because someone rang the doorbell. She said she would be right back, even though she knew how I felt about being alone down there. But I nodded and said, okay. She was gone and I was alone, and I started to get a bad feeling in the pit of my stomach. I didn't move, and I didn't want to. Even though the lights were on now, this is where everything started happening, and it still gives me chills. The lights started to flicker, and I started to hear noises and what sounded like talking, and it was not coming from upstairs, but in the storage room. I heard someone say my name. Here is what freaks me out the most. The voice sounded like my grandma. I was confused as hell. How am I hearing her when she is upstairs? I didn't want to move, but me being the curious one I am, I started moving towards the storage room door. The closer I got, the worse the bad feeling became. When I got to the door, the lights turned off in the basement. I wanted to run upstairs and hide, go home somewhere that wasn't the basement. I heard my name again for the second time. My grandma's voice asking me to open the door to help her. So I did. And I regret it. I couldn't see anything. It was pitch black. I couldn't hear anything but faint laughing that felt like forever. But then the laughing stops, and the lights turn back on in the basement. And I felt a little bit better with the lights back on. But the downside, I could see a little bit in the storage room. I saw a small clown doll in the storage room, and my grandma hates clowns with a passion and wants nothing to do with them. So why is there a clown doll? I have no idea. Then the lights turned on in the storage room. I saw red that looked like blood all over the place. I screamed and blacked out, and the next thing I knew, I was lying on the couch, my grandma looking at me and asking if I was okay. I have no idea if that was real or a dream, but it sure as hell felt real. Okay, let's see if we can find another one. Sorry, I'm just laughing because I'm scrolling through here and some people troll pretty hard. You know, this is a section for royalty-free horror stories. You know, some of them are actual, supposed to be scary stories about ghosts, and some people write about, like, people that stalked them and stuff, you know, stuff that could still be considered creepy. But some people are, like, trolling and writing stories about eating Taco Bell and having diarrhea. My goodness. My God. Alright, let me see if I can find, let's see. Alright, I found 20 creepy true stories to read in the dark tonight. I had to leave Reddit. A lot of them were troll stories or stories that I've read before. I have no idea how these are gonna be, so. Alright, this one's called The Ghost Babysitter. When my niece was really young, she was in a bouncer at my sister's house. I was babysitting. I had left her to go to the kitchen to grab some water. My sister's chocolate labs were probably sniffing and licking her head because I could hear her giggling like she was having a blast. I hadn't noticed how cold it had gotten. Then I heard it. A loud wooden snap, like a thick piece of wood had been snapped in half suddenly, or a tree was knocked over. I ran into the room, and what I saw and smelled freaked me out. The dogs were huddled in the corner whimpering. My niece was just staring at the ceiling corner with wide eyes, and it was cold, and it smelled like Stetson. I took her and we decided to go to a different room. When my sister finally came home, I told her what happened. She just rolled her eyes and said, "That's you." I was confused. She said Hugh was the previous owner of the house, who had died 10 years before his wife sold it. She said he likes to follow my niece around, and you can tell it's him because the dogs freak out. It gets cold and smells like cheap cologne. I don't believe in that stuff, but I do believe that feeling you get in your gut when something doesn't feel right. Stranger in the house. In college, I would go home every other weekend to work at the job I had had since high school. I would drive directly from campus after my last class on Friday to my job, which was about an hour, and after my shift was done, I'd go back to my parents' house, which was out in the middle of nowhere. My parents weren't home yet when I got back from work, so the house was dark, and since it was mid-fall, I pulled into my normal parking spot, got out of the car, and then turned to open the back door of my car and get my backpack out of the back seat. That's when I noticed that the bathroom light was on. Was that light on when I pulled up? It must have been, right? As I was contemplating the light and reaching for my backpack, there was suddenly a very angry-looking old woman standing in the window staring at me. We're not talking resting bitch face here either. She was really pissed off at me, and I knew it. We stood there staring at each other for a good 10 seconds. Then my parents pulled into the driveway and distracted me from my stare down with the woman in the bathroom. By the time I turned back, the light was still on, but the woman was gone. When the dead walk the halls. I used to volunteer at a nursing home where we had several instances where new residents accurately described former residents down to specific nightgowns or color of glasses who I and the staff knew had died in that room and complained about them coming into their rooms at night. Once I was walking through the hallway, and it was normally uncomfortably warm inside, but I felt a chill and goosebumps. One of the CNAs said I had just walked through a ghost. I couldn't get warm again for the rest of the day. There were flickering lights and TVs turning themselves on. Several of the staff were from the same Southeast Asian country, and they were talking about ghosts and disrespect for the dead so much that management had someone come in to do a candlelight ceremony. And this lady with crystals and dreadlocks came in to do a sage brushing. Things calmed down after that. Lights stayed on better, and the residents seemed calmer. The phantom hairdryer. I was in my sophomore year of high school. I would usually get ready and then wait for my mother to drive me to school. While she was getting ready, I was just kind of hanging out in the bathroom with her while she was putting on makeup and curling her hair. She looked a little frazzled, and I asked if everything was okay. She told me about a weird occurrence the night before. She told me that she had been woken up around 2 a.m. by a strange noise. It wasn't super loud, but it was pretty constant. My dad wasn't woken up by it, though it's not surprising as he sleeps like a log. Anyway, she starts looking for the source of the noise, first checking the bathroom attached to their room. but there isn't anything there. Next, she walks out into the hall and hears the noise from the bathroom nearby. When she walks in, she sees a hairdryer plugged in and turned on, just sitting in the middle of the bath mat on the floor. She thinks it's strange, but there were 4 kids living in the house, and she thought maybe someone had sleepwalked and turned it on. Whatever. She unplugs it and puts it away. She goes back to bed and eventually falls asleep. About an hour later, she wakes up again and hears the same noise. She's kind of pissed off and goes to check it out again. Except now, the noise is from downstairs. She tracks it down into the guest bathroom in the main entry hall. My parents' house has like 4 bathrooms. She opens the door, and again, there's a hairdryer turned on, laying in the middle of the floor. She's freaked out by this point, but she unplugs it and puts it away. She did not get a great night's sleep after that, so she's telling me this story. And as soon as she comes to the conclusion, we both just freeze and turn our heads into the walk-in closet off her bathroom. As soon as we look in there, the entire light on the ceiling shatters. Not the light bulb, but the glass cover. It shatters, sending shards of glass everywhere. Welp, we both freak and get the heck out. We didn't know what to make of it, but we haven't really had any experiences before or since, and none of my family have experienced anything either. The nightmares. I was a caretaker of a small uninhabited island off the coast of Maine, and my girlfriend and I started to have synchronized nightmares about things that we had never discussed before. They involved very specific themes, and after a month of this, we were gifted a history book of the island that had a small chapter in the back that mentioned the exact hauntings we'd dreamed about. This is why the basement is locked. My mother was having dinner at a friend's house. It was a small old cottage that's been around for 100 years. She tries to find the bathroom and pulls on a door that is locked. The friend sees and says, "Sorry, that goes to the basement. The bathroom is over there." Thinking it is odd, my mother asks why the basement door is locked. It's always locked. In fact, I don't even have a key for it. The real estate agent advised me not to go down there, as it has not been upgraded like the rest of the cottage. It's little more than a root cellar. Fast forward a few weeks when my mother, who works for the police department's community division, is working on a project about the history of the police department in the town. An old man comes in with the news clippings about various community events, as well as news clippings from the 50s about a gruesome murder. My mom was a bit taken aback. "Sorry, I forgot those clippings were in here too." "No, I know this address. It's my friend's house." "What happened there?" "Oh," said the old man, "well, that used to be my mother's house. She had been dating this man who was cruel to her, beat her horribly. She tried again and again to break it off with him, but he'd always come back. Finally, my aunt moved in with us, and my mother finally finally broke up with him. He starts getting emotional. Then one night he broke in and tied my aunt, my mother, my sister, and brother up in the basement. He shot them all in front of my mother. Then he shot her and killed himself, leaving a note that she would never leave him again. I was away at college at the time. He started to sob. And that is how my mother's friend learned she has a haunted quadruple murder-suicide scene in her basement. She moved out a year later. Wow. Okay, last one. The dying patient. A good friend of mine, while doing his rounds as a young intern, he's now a neurosurgeon, had just looked in on a dying patient. After making the patient comfortable, he exited the room, sat on a nearby chair to write his report. After a few minutes, he looked up and saw his patient walking down the hall. He called to her, but there was no response. As he stood up to approach her, she disappeared. He quickly walked toward the patient's room and saw a light under the door. When he opened the door, it was completely dark in the room. So he turned the light on, went over to the patient and felt for her pulse. She had died. He swears to this experience. Okay, you guys, I'm hearing the train tracks start to rattle. So that means that a train is coming soon, so I am just going to end this video now, but I think I'll try and do more videos like this one. I haven't done ghost stories in a while. This might be a little bit of an easier format for me. I don't know, we'll give it a try. Okay, bye. Hey everybody, I thought that I would record a quick little video looking at some of the old TV shows that were broadcast on the Disney Channel and Nickelodeon back in the 80s and the 90s. You know, I just turned 39 yesterday. Well, actually, I don't know what time this is going up, so anyway, I turned 39 on the 23rd, and I'm feeling really nostalgic. I was talking to a Facebook friend about some of the shows that I used to watch on the Disney Channel and Nickelodeon, and how weird it is that I'm now the age of the parents on these shows, which of course means that, you know, some of the kids that were on these shows, if they were older than me, God, I don't even want to think about it. They could be close to being old enough to be grandparents. Okay, let's stop talking about that. They'd be really young grandparents, but still. So I'm gonna read through these. This is the list of programs broadcast by the Disney Channel, like period overall, I think. And I don't think they're in order of year. So I'm gonna hop around and look for the old ones. So, as far as live action goes, oh, that's current programming. Let's scroll down. Upcoming programming. Okay, former former programming. That's what we want. You know, some of these I watched in the late 90s, early 2000s, but well, alright, I'll read some of them. I did watch a little bit of Recess, you know, in 1997. I was in high school. I graduated in June of 1999. I saw an episode or two of House of Mouse. I did watch a little bit of The Proud Family. A little bit of Kim Possible. Let's see. My son loves Gravity Falls. Clearly that's not a super old show, but I just thought I'd put that out there. Okay. Good Morning, Miss Bliss. I didn't actually know this was on the Disney Channel from 88 to 89. I think it was only one season period of that show anyway. But when I watched it, it was a couple years later. And it was on like TBS or WGN or something like that. Or some local channel affiliate of WGN. I don't know. But I didn't get to see it on the Disney Channel. Now, Teen Angel, I'm pretty sure that was, like, I'm gonna click on it. I'm pretty sure that Robin Lively was in that. The one from, blah, 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 blah. Well, Teen Witch, but, let's see. Jason Priestley was in it. It was kind of a little, just a short, like, very, like, a couple of minutes each episode, because it was part of, like, the new Mickey Mouse Club, the MMC. So there was probably like 10 or 15 minutes of each episode. It was kind of like a serial, like an old school serial in the MMC. Yeah, Jason Priestley starred as a 1950s teenage guardian angel who was killed in a car wreck in 1959. I feel like do I want to click this? Let's see. Alright. Let's see if it'll take me to IMDb. I feel like Robin Lively was in it. Maybe it's not going to tell me. See full cast and crew. Here I am, like this is important or something. Maybe she was in a different version of some. This is gonna bother me, guys. Don't mind me. I love Robin Lively, by the way. Loved her in Teen Witch. Loved her in Dream a Little Dream 2. I don't know why, but I always thought that she played Pippi Longstocking until I realized that was a different chick. Also, for those of you that loved High School Musical, she is married to Zac Efron's dad in that movie. Well, she's married to the actor that plays his dad in real life. Let's see. was in the Not Quite Human movies. I loved those. About the, yeah, Teen Angel. Okay, Teen Angel Returns. So she was in the sequel. Alright, let's get back to it. And now I've lost myself. Uh-oh. I gotta go back. I get off on these crazy tangents. I am so sorry. Okay. Flash forward. Now that was a 90s show. Starring Jewel State. And, oh, what's Ben Foster, I think is his name. Yeah, I really liked that show. I was really surprised that he has been in some really good movies. He was in one of the X-Men, but he was in, what was it, 310, the 310 to Yuma or something like that. And he was the brother in Alpha Dog, the older brother. And I can't remember who. Let's see. They might be divorced, but I'm not sure. Ben Foster married. Really? That's not who I thought he married. Well, he's currently married to the redhead from that 70s show. Oh, he used to be married to somebody else. Here we go. Going off on tangents. Oh, okay. I think he was just dating Robin, right? Okay. Anyway. Okay, guys. I did watch The Famous Jet Jackson, and I know that the actor that played Jet Jackson, I believe, which football movie was he in? Shoot, I cannot remember. But I know that, unfortunately, he shot himself. Let's see, I did watch Even Stevens and Lizzie McGuire. Sorry. Alright, I need to be looking for the older movies and TV shows. Okay, The Babysitter's Club. This was originally an HBO series. It was on HBO and it was available on VHS, because I remember that I got an episode, or I got a VHS tape that had like 2 or 3 episodes on it through a book order form when I was in the 4th grade, and that was a couple of years before 1994. So, oh, I loved Brotherly Love with all the Jonas Brothers. Oh my god. Oh my god, I can't believe I said that. The Lawrence Brothers. Jeez. Dinosaurs. That was the one that was on, was it ABC or NBC in the late 80s, early 90s. Growing Pains. I always watched Growing Pains, but I did watch it on the Disney Channel, but I watched it on a different channel quite a few years before 1997. Okay, Jump, Rattle, and Roll. I definitely watched that on Disney in the early 90s when it was first on. It kind of reminded me of the Short Circuit movies. Ready or Not, I loved that show. Now, Ready or Not was on Showtime originally. It came on kind of in a block, I think, with the old school Degrassi Junior High from the 80s and another Canadian TV show called Crisscross. Sister Sister I watched on there, but I feel like I watched that show on a different channel long before that. Smart Guy I watched. Torkelson's. There's one that I watched all the time. Let's see. Avonlea. I loved Avonlea. I loved Felicity, even though she could be kind of a witch sometimes. But I loved any episode that had her and Gus in it. Danger Bay, I don't remember really watching. I just remember the theme song and like the opening with the boat speeding across the water. And I can hear the song in my head. Erie, Indiana. Now this had to have been. I watched it on the Disney Channel, but it had to have been on a different channel before Disney Channel, because around the time that it was on the Disney Channel, like shortly after it premiered on the Disney Channel, Omri Katz, who played Marshall Teller on the show, was in the movie Hocus Pocus, and that movie came out around this time, and he was older in the movie. I definitely remember these two shows. Ocean Girl, about a girl that could communicate with whales, and these people that worked and lived in an underwater community studying the whales. Spellbinder, I remember too. That one was kind of like, it wasn't, I don't think it was a go back in time thing, it was like another dimension type thing. I remember watching Teen Win, Lose or Draw, because the host was the guy that played Skippy on Family Ties. Now, I watched Fairy Tale Theater on the Disney Channel and on PBS. I loved Fairy Tale Theater. Some of those episodes really creeped me out, though, especially the Beauty and the Beast one. Kids Incorporated, I loved that show. It produced some stars like Fergie. You know, I was really surprised to learn that Stacy on Kids Incorporated was Stacy Ferguson, who's Fergie. You know, even though her face now looks a little different, if you look at up-close pictures of her on the show, you can still kind of see that it's her. Jennifer Love Hewitt was on that show. An actor named Eric Balfour. Mario Lopez was like a drummer and maybe a backup dancer, I think. There was an 80s singer. She sang the song Toy Soldiers. and she kind of disappeared for a while, but I think she's trying to come back. I think her name was Martika or something like that. I know that there's one or two other people, but I know that a guy from the movie The Monster Squad from the 80s, an actor named Ryan Lambert or something like that, was on there too. Let's see. I kind of remember Tall Tales and Legends. Fraggle Rock. Now, I did watch it on the Disney Channel, but I also watched it on HBO before that. Groundling Marsh sounds familiar, but I don't think I watched it. Mother Goose Stories. I remember that. Secret Life of Toys. I remember that because there's a Jim Henson Christmas movie called The Christmas Toy, and that spawned The Secret Life of Toys. And I've always wondered if the movie Toy Story was inspired by that. Under the Umbrella Tree is one of my absolute favorites. It was a Canadian show about a woman named Holly who moved into an apartment, and already living in the apartment was a gopher named Gloria who lived in a burrow underneath an indoor umbrella tree. There was... Wait, wasn't an indoor umbrella tree? I can't remember. There was an iguana named Iggy and a blue jay named Jacob. Let's see. Now, my son, when he was a toddler, watched the Doodle Pops, and I totally watched it with him. And Handy Manny, and Igglytown Heroes, JoJo's Circus, the Koala Brothers. Man, I'm getting a little depressed now, a little sad. Not depressed, but sad. It's actually sadder to me looking at these shows that my son used to watch when he was very little. And he's now 15. Than it is for me, the shows that I used to watch, even though I'm much older than him. It's just like, I don't know, it's hard to explain. You parents probably know what I'm talking about. But I'm looking at, like, My Friend Tigger and Boo. Man. Crazy. Anyway, okay. Boy Meets World. I watched it on ABC, I think. Like TGIF. But I think around that time, Disney might have bought the rights to TGIF or something. I don't know. So weird. I liked that show about the paranormal. In a Heartbeat, I liked that show too. Those of you who are my age that decided, even though you were a little bit older, watched Degrassi, The Next Generation, or those of you who are a little bit younger than me and grew up on Degrassi, The Next Generation, the girl that played Paige started on this show as like an assistant working at like an EMT place. Let's see. Bug Juice. I loved Bug Juice. That was the reality show about kids at camp. And I especially liked it because the very first season was about a summer camp in Maine, where I'm from. Let's see. I think Spot the dog was the little yellow dog. They had this show, this little block of TV around lunchtime for little kids called Lunchbox, I believe, and it consisted of Spot the dog, Paddington Bear, and Curious George. Oh man, Imagination Movers. That's another one my son liked. Let's see. Mousercise, that's an old one, started in 1983. That was on super early in the morning, like when I'd be getting up and getting ready to get on the bus. So, I never participated, but sometimes I'd be watching it as I'm getting ready to go to school. The Kid Songs television show, I think I watched that. The All New Mickey Mouse Club, or the MMC, I was a huge fan of that. And I think it kind of sucks that it's most well known for popping out Britney Spears and Christina and Justin, because there were so many, not to say that they aren't talented, because clearly they are, especially Christina, but there was so many other talented people on there that weren't Carrie Russell, Ryan Gosling, Justin, Britney, Christina. It kind of sucks, but I really love the show. And actually, they did a 30-year anniversary reunion, apparently, this past May in Disney World, and I'm so bummed that I missed it because it was open to all the fans and stuff. That would have been really cool. Oh my god, Going Wild with Jeff Corwin, I remember that. It was a nature show. Let's see. Oh my gosh, I remember this is Daniel Cook. This is Daniel Cook on a bike, on a plane. Oh my god. Apparently I played too much Disney Channel even when I was in my early 20s. It must have been when I was watching Lizzie McGuire and That's So Raven. Okay, here's 3 big ones I used to love. Welcome to Pooh Corner. That was a live action. We're talking people in animatronic costumes of Winnie the Pooh. They had all the characters. I'm not sure, but I think that it was possibly narrated by the original guy that narrated the cartoon movie. Dumbo Circus, very similar. People in animatronic costumes. There was Dumbo. Now, I think instead of a mouse, there was a koala named Fair Dinkum. There was a cat named Lily, I think. And there would, I don't know if it was I can't remember if it was another cat named Sebastian. I cannot remember, but I liked it. And Adventures in Wonderland, which was basically a modern version of Alice in Wonderland, and Alice was in junior high, and every episode she would be in her bedroom and she would walk through her full-length mirror and fall into Wonderland, and we'd learn about prepositions and onomatopoeias and lots of language art things. It was interesting. Adventures of the Gummy Bears, loved that. The Care Bears, loved that. Now, I'm not sure where the original Care Bears were, because there's like two different Care Bears. Now, this one, the 90s version, was a lot more funky. It was kind of like a late 80s, early 90s funky Care Bears. The mid 80s Care Bears were a lot more low budget and soft spoken. Chippendale Rescue Rangers, definitely watched that, and Darkwing Duck, Donald Duck's Quack Attack. Now, I did watch Doug, but I did not like Disney's version as much. Watched DuckTales, watched Good Morning Mickey. I loved My Little Ponytails. I did watch The New Adventures of Winnie the Pooh. I don't even remember New Kids on the Block being on there. I don't know if it was their cartoon or what. I watched Pepper Ann, the raccoons. I loved the raccoons. I feel like I watched them on a different channel before the Disney Channel, though. I remember Rupert. Tailspin. Oh my god, the Wuzzles. I loved the Wuzzles so much. Do you guys remember the Wuzzles? Where each animal was like two animals in one. Like Bumble Lion was a lion that was also a bumblebee. And Rhinoki was a rhinoceros monkey. I loved it so much. I feel like there was so much more that's not listed here. One of my favorite things was they would have this block of television called DTV, where in between shows they'd show like a couple of like funky 80s music or like music from the 60s set to like Disney cartoons. Alright, let's move on to Nickelodeon, because let's see, I definitely talked too long about that. Let's see. So we are on Nickelodeon, trying to get to the old stuff. Well, back in 1988, they had Kids Pick the President, and every now and then they had this big, like, telethon called The Big Help, where kids would call in and pledge to do something to help out, like clean a park or volunteer their time and stuff. Let's see. Max and Ruby, that's another one. A lot of these are going to be ones that my son watched when he was younger. I wish they had these things in order, man. Here we go. Former programming. I loved Nickelodeon's version of Doug. Loved the Rugrats. Loved Ren and Stimpy. Rocco. All Real Monsters. It was okay. Hey Arnold was okay. Didn't really care for the Angry Beavers or Cat Dog. I know. The Wild Thornberries was okay. I loved As Told by Ginger. That was a little bit... That was like 2000. Yeah, 2000. Let's see. I'm supposed to be looking for the older shows. Oh, The Adventures of Pete and Pete. I loved The Adventures of Pete and Pete. Yeah, I was 10 when this started. That's so weird to think. Hey dude. 1989. So I was not even 9 yet when it started. I wouldn't be 9 for a couple more months. It sucks that it didn't last very long. Welcome Freshmen. I remember that because when Welcome Freshmen and a lot of these early shows from like the last couple years in the 80s into like the first year or two in the 90s, they were on Nickelodeon at a time when it was still kind of growing, because I remember like it would be, back then it was kind of like split in half. Like they would like in the afternoons they would show like Flipper and Lassie and the shows that you'd expect to see on Nick at Night. And it wasn't nighttime, we're talking like 2-3 p.m. So Salute Your Shorts, one of my favorites. The Secret World of Alex Mack. My Brother and Me. Keenan and Kel. Cousin Skeeter. I loved that show. They have the first season and the first season only on iTunes currently, and it drives me insane. I read on the Facebook page that one of the actresses said they're trying to get the rights together so they can release the rest of the seasons, but 15 had a very young Ryan Reynolds playing the character Billy. Are You Afraid of the Dark? Loved that show. Space Cases. Loved that show. Hey, kitty. Stop it. Yeah, Shelby Woo was okay. Alan Strange was okay. I slightly remember Animorphs. I mostly remember that a lot of the actors on there ended up being on the TV show that I talked about on the Disney Channel called In a Heartbeat, that had Paige from Degrassi. Of course, I remember all the Double Dare shows. Wild and Crazy Kids, Get the Picture, What Would You Do, Nick Arcade, Guts, Legends of the Hidden Temple, Figure It Out. Oh my goodness. So, these next ones are gonna be like a lot of the Nick Jr. type shows. It wasn't, well, I think it was starting to be Nick Jr. back then. Now, Pinwheel. I remember watching Pinwheel on Nickelodeon. Let's see. Mr. Wizard's World. Out of Control. Oh, actually, okay, we're not into the Nick Jr. stuff yet. Pinwheel was on Nick Jr., but we're not at the rest yet. I loved the show Roundhouse. That was kind of like, well, it was like a sketch comedy series with like a rotating stage, or more like they were on stages that moved around. I don't know, it was really good and they were really talented. I hated Wienerville. Hated it. I loved all that for the most part. Okay, now we're into the younger crowd shows. Now, Little Bear started when I was in high school, and even though it says final date 2003, they still repeated it when my son was little, and he was born in 2004. I thought Little Bill was adorable. You know, of course, my son watched Dora and Oswald. Oswald was a blue octopus, and he had a dog called, I think, Weenie Dog or something like that, and he was voiced by Fred Savage. The Backyardigans, my son watched that. In fact, I remember when I took him for his first checkup as a baby, they had the episode where Tasha the hippo was pretending that she was like the Queen of the Nile or something. Man, Go Diego Go, Wonder Pets, Ni Hao Kai Lan. Oh man, all of these shows were when he was a baby. Okay, but now I watched a lot of Nick Jr. when my younger sister, was a toddler and into like kindergarten and first grade. And one summer when I babysat her, we watched a lot of Eureka's Castle, Allegra's Window, Gullah Gullah Island. Oh, I have to point out Blues Room and Yo Gabba Gabba. My son, of course, watched when he was little. I wish these were in order. So, let's see. I remember watching The Adventures of the Little Prince. I remember watching Danger Mouse and Garfield and Friends. I remember watching Dennis the Menace. I remember watching Heathcliff the cat. I remember watching Muppet Babies on Nickelodeon. I remember watching Mork and Mindy on Nick at Night. Sorry if you hear like a train going by. Okay, The Adventures of the Little Koala. That was on Nick Jr. when my sister was little. And Grimm's Fairy Tale Classics and The Busy World of Richard Scarry. And The Little Bits. And Fred Benner's Place. And Mapletown. And Maya the Bee. And Papa Beaver's Story Time. I loved that one. And when my son was little, there was Lazy Town, Bob the Builder, Franklin. I loved Franklin the Turtle. I remember watching You Can't Do That on Television. Let's see. Today's Special was originally on PBS, but it popped on to Nickelodeon in like the Nick Jr. spot too. Wow Wow Whoopsie, that was another one that my son liked. Rupert, my son liked that one. Gosh, there was just so many. I can't remember if I read the Noozles anywhere. Yeah, there was just so much. Alright, you guys, I have talked for way too long, so I am going to end this now.
my god. Oh, ew. Oh my god.
This is why I don't do the big ones often. Ew. Man. God. Gross. Trying to make a thumbnail.
Okay, I'm done. Oh my god. On that note, you guys, I've got to go scrub and wash my hair. Wow. Glad you can't do animated thumbnails. Okay.